Let's begin what's trending with an update from the presidency, announcing that the United States government has indicated their commitment to strengthening its fight against terrorism in Nigeria. The announcement came in a statement posted on X by presidential advisor Bayo Ononuga, who stated that the Nigerian security delegation, led by the National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu, met with various U.S. officials to strengthen security cooperation, secure enhanced intelligence and defense support, refute allegations of genocide in Nigeria, and agree on a new cooperation framework to protect citizens. And I'll take Bayo Ononuga's post on X in part. He wrote, "In all engagements in Washington, D.C., Nigerian delegation refuted allegations of genocide in Nigeria, emphasizing that violent attacks affect families and communities across religious and ethnic lines. The delegation strongly rejected wrongful framing of the situation, saying such would only divide Nigerians and distort the realities on the ground." Following these engagements, the United States government affirmed its readiness to deepen security cooperation with Nigeria. This includes enhanced intelligence support, expedited processing of defense equipment requests, and the potential provision of excess defense articles that's subject to availability to reinforce ongoing operations against terrorist and violent extremist groups. In addition, Bayo Ononuga stated that the United States government also expressed willingness to extend humanitarian assistance to impacted populations in the Middle Belt, especially, as well as offer technical support to ensure the mechanisms around early community warnings are strengthened. And this is a sort of collaboration that I have been looking for. It's great to see that, this conversation is going even beyond detail, providing technical assistance and, concentrating on the Middle Belt, which is really where the Christian killings have occurred for decades. Meanwhile, the assistant to the U.S. Secretary of War for Public Affairs, Sean Parnell, published a readout of the landmark meeting between U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Nigeria's National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, in which he stated that both countries discussed ways to make tangible progress on stopping violence against Christians in Nigeria and combating West African jihadist terrorist groups. During the meeting, Hegseth emphasized the need for Nigeria to take urgent action to stop violence against Christians, adding that the department is open to work with Nigeria to deter terrorists that threaten the United States. I'm happy that it's not just from Bayo Ononuga that we are hearing the report. We got a readout from the Department of War. The collaboration is starting, like I told you, Ayo. When we first took the story where the Nigerian delegation went to meet with, the man leading the investigation in Congress, Riley Moore.
Yes.
I said that this is, the beginning of the conversation for the collaboration that we really need to tackle insecurity. However, we're seeing, pockets of, reports of insecurity, insurgency. Yesterday, there was fake news from my town, Kwale, that we saw that they said something about, the Fulani headers terrorizing the young girls, but it wasn't true. The Delta State Police Command debunked that news, that it is not true. But it's either we are hearing that these are pockets of violence or there are real violence still happening in Nigeria. However, in Nasarawa State, a video that made the rounds on social media overnight showed panic and chaos in Agboda village community after a church crusade was allegedly disrupted by terrorist herdsmen. In the video dated yesterday, Monday, November 24th, families with young children are seen running as a man recalls the moment the crusade was disrupted. Let's take a look.
We came for a crusade here, live in Africa, in Nasarawa State. And live as I'm talking to you,
came in for a crusade in this community today. Look at what it is.
As you can see, you can see the youth, everybody is unrest just for the sake of it right here in Nasarawa State. A serious lockdown in this community.
Dr. Bati, we're yet to get an official statement from the state government in Nasarawa State. And despite moves being made by the federal government to get, a handle on insecurity and terrorism, videos like this show just how fearful and uneasy communities across the country are feeling right now. Arise News has not independently verified that video, but it has gone viral. I thought it was important to highlight it, also to hear from the Nasarawa State government. We did see the video of this young man even preparing to go for this crusade, only to have this video of the charade that occurred last night.
A quick assessment of the trip to the United States would inform us that it was a successful trip.
Yes.
Against the background of the diplomatic tension that has been caused by the redesignation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern. the Nigerian delegation eventually met with the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who is in a position to take this to the highest levels within the U.S. It also shows that, well, in spite of everything, the bilateral relations between Nigeria and the United States is alive and well, and there are opportunities for further consultation and collaboration. Now, Nigeria has very strong relationship with the U.S. in the area of trade, security, economic growth, education, and this has been a long-standing relationship. So reaching out to the Americans means, of course, that there are, new pathways. But this idea of cooperation and collaboration and intelligence sharing, it's not as straightforward. There will be modalities that have to be worked out. There will be trade-offs. I just hope that the Nigerian administration will have the capacity to measure up, because oftentimes we hold these meetings, we lack the capacity to follow and to follow through. And in this particular case where security is involved, I hope that everybody will be attentive enough to know that it's not something you joke with. Since Trump says we tend to see everything as a joke in Nigeria. The second point is to say that the incident in Ndokwa Nation, I think your nation is Ndokwa.
Yes, Kwane. My mother is from Ndokwa.
Because I had one man.
Kwale. That's where my mother is from.
Okay.
Kwale.
But the man was talking about Ndokwa Nation.
Ndokwa. Kwale is in Ndokwa. Okay. It's like a little town within the Ndokwa community.
In any case,
yes.
What he says, what the Commissioner of Police in Delta State, his name is Abaniwanda, Commissioner of Police Abaniwanda, and in this particular case, the literal meaning of his name will seem to apply. That this was a case of misinformation. No, that people were just scaremongering.
Sorry, can I ask you?
That it didn't happen.
Who told you the meaning of his name?
Abaniwanda.
Yes.
It means that they are just guessing. They are imagining things. That there was no attack.
Right. Yes.
These were students who just saw some Fulani people and they started panicking.
No, they said that that's how they actually go back home. That it's just someone who was trying to be mischievous.
Yes.
Was it even anything?
So what the Nigerian government is to do, either in Kwale or in Nasarawa, is to continue to educate the people so that we don't have a rampaging culture of fear. Because if you were to go into that street now and you say, they are coming, you will see everybody will take to their heels.
It's not funny, but yes.
That is the climate of fear that we have established, with our missions in this country. Nobody will ask who are the day.
Yes.
Nobody is going to wait. Everybody will move.
But speaking about fear, meanwhile, former Lagos State governorship candidate Gbadebo Rose-Vival is calling on the federal government to license firearms for citizens to defend themselves against terrorists due to the government's failure to secure the country. Speaking on live television, the politician cited recent abduction in Kwara and Ogun states over the weekend, saying that insecurity has spread beyond the north to other parts of the country, adding that it will be wicked to ask citizens to remain helpless when the government has failed to provide security. Let's take a look.
It is wickedness to ask people to just remain helpless when the government fails them. How many people have to die before we understand this fact has to become a reality? Until the government steps up. I'm talking about this situation now because of the failure of government that we found ourselves in. Right? And in this failure, if the government cannot sit up, then they start considering licensing firearms. But then you now ask yourself, if the same government is withdrawing protection from people before terrorists come in, will they license firearms?
By calling for citizens to be licensed to carry firearms has been a long-time debate. Some say it's a radical proposal that will either be seen as a desperate cry for self-preservation or a recipe for total chaos. I mean, this is not the first time that we've, seen this debate online or even Nigerians talking. I believe there was even a bill by Ned Nwoko that, he tried to push. But, you can't really blame anyone calling to protect themselves at this point. We have even seen videos, if we can pull some of those videos, of priests carrying guns that have been trending on social media all along. Your thoughts on the story? These are the videos we're seeing of these priests, even in church. We find
ourselves in such a complex place, OG, because what do you expect people to do in this type of climate? Is that the natural human instinct of self-preservation kicks in and people want to resort to self-help. But unfortunately, when it comes to self-help, we've seen time and time again that it generally does lead to a state of anarchy. But in this moment, we say, okay, the state is not doing its duty. So the people are saying, well, we can't just be exposed. So the state has to step in. This is what we've been calling for consistently, and we can't relent in continuing to call for that. Because let's remind ourselves that one of the reasons why we are in this predicament is because there's just a brazen institutional weakness.
Yes.
Now, how many people actually update their driver's license regularly? And how often is it checked? And how authentic is it? If you look across the country, driver's license, right? Now, how are we now going to regulate gun licenses? And how are we going to ensure that, people truly are abiding by it? How are we going to bypass the corruption? So institutions first have to be addressed. And this is, I'm just consistent about this point, that the real fundamental issues, we can't take Panadol for this kind of ailment, unfortunately. So yes, if all things are equal, I think it's fair to say people should have the right to carry firearms. But unfortunately, all things are not equal, and we don't want a situation where the same people that we are accusing of orchestrating and being perpetuators of these things, their arguments that these people are funded by powerful people. Are we sure we want those same powerful people to now have legal licenses to also access firearms? Because remember, as much as innocent citizens will have access to it, also those with malicious intent will also have access. So many things. Are we going to do mental health checks before granting licenses? Gun licenses, it's a huge topic, on its own.
It's such a huge topic that I wish that everyone can
They're behaving like they are in a psychotic state.
They don't have
if you give them guns freely, then you'll be opening the gate to hell.
But you know that most of the
gun control.
What about that most of the gun violence that has been perpetrated by people in America, people that have been unwell. A lot of them are not normal. The gun violence.
We have many people who are unwell right now of Lagos and Nigeria that are not sure.
Right.
Didn't you say that even our political leaders should all undergo psychological tests? Because we are not yet mature for that. Please, for those who are advocating for that, it's an abdication of responsibility of the government to do what they're supposed to do, rather than emphasize licensing guns. Let's use that same energy to push for the government to do what they're supposed to do.
Yes, but also the conversation about even these terrorists that have access, the proliferation of arms, firearms, is the biggest problem that we have in Nigeria. How are these people able to have their hands on the guns and we're not able to? Yes, absolutely. Well, we'll continue on the conversation. So you don't own a gun? You don't own a firearm? I thought you had one.
I'm covered by the blood of
Amen.
In traffic, people will be angry and bring out a gun.
That's what happens in America. That's one of the biggest issues in America. The gun control and gun violence. We'll take another story now. Following the court ruling that jailed the leader of the indigenous peoples of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, for life, Senator representing Abia North, Orji Uzor Kalu, has urged Igbos to stop being emotional over the sentencing, but instead pursue a political solution to secure his release. Speaking on live television, the former Abia State governor said separatist agitations linked to the IPOB leader have claimed over 30,000 lives and ruined livelihoods across the southeast. Kalu defended James Omotosho, who convicted Kanu last week, saying criticisms of the verdict were misplaced and that the judge was simply doing his job. Let's take a look.
3 reasons why your iPhone is always running out of storage.
Stop doing this. You don't need to delete spam mails manually.
When we focus solely on Nnamdi Kanu, we have to solve this problem holistically. Because there are over 30,000 Igbos that were killed. People that have their shop and no shops. People lost their businesses. There are over 30-something thousand Igbos that were killed in this process, and nobody talks about them. The court never mentioned about people that lost their business and run away from their villages. It's not something, I don't let me to go emotional here, because it's not something anybody can discuss. A lot of Igbos were killed, Sean. A lot of Igbos were killed. If you don't know it today, let Igbos stop being emotional. I want us to settle down and go on our knees and find a way that the man can be released. You cannot rant up in a court of competent jurisdiction. I take exception to it. People might say it's good. Justice Omotosho is just a messenger of the court, and he did his job. If you are displeased, you go to appellate court. It's not to start insulting the man. What we should start looking now, the kind of people are going to appellate court, and we are using the political sides to solve the problem, because this is the area I know. I'll be contacting the Attorney General to advise the President, to advise people who are concerned on how we solve this problem.
Well, Orji Uzor Kalu's message is clear. Stop the noise and start negotiating. But will Kalu's political approach gain traction in the southeast, or will he be seen as selling out the IPOB cause? Well, in another development, The government of the United Kingdom has rejected the federal government's request to transfer former Deputy Senate President Ike Ekweremadu to Nigeria to complete his prison sentence for organ trafficking. Ekweremadu is currently serving 9 years and 8 months in a UK prison after being convicted in March 2023 for conspiring to exploit a young man's kidney. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had sent a high-level delegation comprising Foreign Affairs Minister Yusuf Tuga and Attorney General Lateef Fagbemi to London earlier this month to negotiate his transfer. However, the UK Guardian, quoting an unnamed Ministry of Justice official, reported that the request was rejected over concerns that Nigeria could offer no guarantees that Ekweremadu would continue his prison sentence after being deported, generating mixed reactions. And I'll take one, Ayo, before I come to you. Isip wrote on X, this whole Ekweremadu issue just exposing how broken our system has become. How can the federal government even request that he completes his sentence here when we still struggle to enforce basic justice at home? The United Kingdom refusing isn't the real headline. The real headline is how little confidence other nations have in our institutions until we fix our justice system, rebuild trust, and end the policy failures that have weakened the country under this government. We'll keep facing this kind of international embarrassment. Nigeria needs leadership that restores credibility, not more shortcuts. Well, the United Kingdom's rejection is a major diplomatic setback for Nigeria. They're concerned that Ekweremadu might not complete his sentence if transferred speaks volumes about international perception of our criminal justice system. I'll reiterate again that this report is from an unnamed official from the Ministry of Justice in the United Kingdom. I hope that it's 100% credible. If it is, that's the reaction out there. What our perception in the global stage?
So I said this earlier that this is an indication that there's a trust deficit, not just with the Nigerian people and the criminal justice system, because I often refer to All Eyes on the Judiciary at the time when it was trending. And if you asked a number of people in Nigeria as to the criminal justice system, if you even look at the Nnamdi Kanu case, that's one of the issues that we have there, the trust in the justice system. Because in any sane country, what Orji Uzor Kalu said, he made a lot of sense there. And what the Nigerian government did by its lack of the deficit of trust in the criminal justice system was that people don't trust the government to be fair and just in the dispensation of justice. That's just what it says. And the UK has just alluded to that fact by almost a diplomatic slap on our face by saying that we don't have the capacity to guarantee that someone who's been convicted in the United Kingdom would come home to Nigeria and face the full wrath of the law. Let me give you an example. Recently, there was a whole ruckus around the president's pardon list. Remember that? And where some characters on that list were questionable, especially those who were convicted of crimes around terrorism, crimes around drug-related offenses, and people asked that what was the prerogative of mercy in that regard based on the gravity of the offense. Now, what we fail to recognize is that with all these things happening, it's not just Nigerians who have a say. The international world is watching. The world is a global village. And so when a nation like the United Kingdom does not have the confidence enough in our justice system to ensure that someone who's been convicted because of his political influence would face his full sentence, that's a problem. We need to fix our problems internally. Instead of propaganda around, let us keep a good face, let us talk about us well, let us fix our problem, let us fix our institutions, let us respect the rule of law in Nigeria, let us not cherry pick on which order to obey and respect and which not to obey and respect. It's what's happening in the Nnamdi Kanu situation that's made him a hero, and unintentionally this government have made him a hero, because truthfully, if you listen to the calls of Nnamdi Kanu, a number of them incited terrorism and mayhem. It was he that ordered sit-at-home order in the East, and this is what we see, the loss of economic activities in that area. People are not thinking of this. What they are looking at is that it is unfair, and it's not just unfair to the man alone, to an entire region. And that's why I agree that I hope that a political solution will be given to this particular matter, even though unfortunately, based on his records and antecedents, he ought to have been made to face the full wrath of the law based on the number of lives and businesses and people that he affected and the things that he said. But because of our justice system, where they ignored court rulings based on Nnamdi Kanu, his bail, his compensation, people just see it as injustice, injustice, injustice. And that's why we keep on speaking. Let us raise strong institutions. Let us obey the rule of law. Let us ensure that not just internally but internationally we can stand strong as a people that respect the criminal justice system.
Well said, Ayo. Very well said.
Prisoners is at the prerogative of the holding country.
All right.
So you can't just say you are sending a delegation. It's entirely at their discretion. At
their discretion, correct.
Number two is that, look, the prison system in Nigeria is also very suspect. This was the first test case for the Modern Slavery Act.
Right.
The first case to be tried and determined under that law.
All
so
right.
UK Guardian was reporting yesterday that they are apprehensive about what would happen. But you know, this is a case about family, about parents trying to do something for their children.
Well,
so there's also a family dimension.
All right.
But I believe that in the fullness of time, former Deputy Senate President Ekwere Madu will regain his freedom.
We're yet to receive an official report from the Ministry of Justice in the United Kingdom, so I'm restating that point again. So we'll follow up on the story once we have an official report on the story. Well,